evening, everyone, and welcome to this special meeting or study session of the Monrovia City Council this Tuesday, March 18th, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:18, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Sergio Jimenez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please stand and face our nation's flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sergio. Okay, roll call.
Council members Feldon,
Here.
Jimenez.
Here.
Spicer.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dr. Kelly. And Mayor Shevlin.
Here. Okay, do we have any public input requests this evening on matters on the agenda? Not seeing any then, I will close that portion and move on to the discussion. And this is a review of street vendors ordinance. And Sherry, are you starting us off?
Yes, Madam Mayor, good evening.
you.
Tonight, actually, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our Neighborhood and Business Services Manager, Jocelyn Blakely. So take it away.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Shevlin and members of the City Council. This evening, we will go over the street vendor ordinance a little bit with you. We're going to start with some of the background just to make sure that you're aware of a lot of the different categories of the street vendors that we deal with. Or I'm sorry, I'm saying the street vendors, but there's more than street vendors that we will be addressing. So this agenda will go over the vendor types, the city regulations, also the code enforcement challenges that we have, and some of the potential solutions that we also deal with. So this first type of vendor, peddlers and solicitors, they're the door-to-door sellers, the ones that go to get service. They request donations. Sometimes you may see them in your area. A lot of times nowadays, it used to be encyclopedia vendors. You sometimes will see solar people now going door to door to get information to drum up new business. They do require a business license from the city. They are restricted from soliciting in certain areas. They also have time restrictions. There's no vending between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. And then they have to move around. They cannot stay in one spot, so they're known to go door to door, and that's what they're there for. Stationary sales are not allowed. We also have a category of mobile food vendors. So the mobile food vendors are operating from vehicles such as food trucks and ice cream trucks. So these mobile food vendors do have to comply with parking laws and also health department requirements. They have to get a certificate.
Jocelyn, can I stop you just for a second? Because I see like Edward's writing and I was looking around. Are we going to be able to have a copy of your slide presentation? We don't have to have it right now, but so can we have it?
At some point.
Yeah. Dylan's going to get it. Because I saw Edward looking around and I'm looking around. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry. I'll slow down just in case. So for the mobile food vendors, these are required to have a health department certificate, also a city business license. The noise limits do apply to them. These are the ice cream vendors and also the mobile food trucks that are out there. They have to be contained within a vehicle. The restricted areas are no vending within 300 feet of schools during school hours, and then also they can't operate within 25 feet of an intersection. These require liability insurance as well, and then they, like I said, they have to contain all of their items within the mobile vending cart or vehicle. So this one, the sidewalk vendors, these are stationary and also mobile within carts or kiosks on public sidewalks. These vendors you will see around sometimes. They sometimes have business licenses and health department permits if they are selling food. The vendors cannot block pedestrian pathways or emergency exits. They're restricted to locations that are not near schools, public buildings, or bus stops. They also are required to get special insurance and then special event permits depending on where they're actually selling at. These vendors do have to also maintain a clean area and provide waste disposal to prevent litter. these are definitely out there. We see them around. We do have some that have licenses. They're peddlers and solicitors and mobile vendors. They're all appropriately functioning. So when we talk about those different categories, they already have the proper approvals and then their permits are being obtained. So currently for the peddlers, we have about 5 licensed peddlers. For the mobile vendors, the food trucks, we have 10 that are currently licensed in the city. In this other area, the sidewalk food vendors, they are the ones that we're having the most difficulty with. They don't all have the proper permits. We've done a couple sweeps this month, and there's been 3 to 5 that are out there operating without permits at any given time. We noticed one of the days that we went was a weekend, so there were 2 additional that we hadn't seen during the weekday. The enforcement is limited due to changes in state law, and that has made it so that it's a little bit harder to give them any penalties for what they're doing. So SB 946, which you guys may be familiar with, came out a couple years ago, 2018. We adopted a vending ordinance right after that in 2019 to basically make sure that our vending laws are in line with what the state is allowing. We used to be able to cite people with misdemeanor citations, and then we would give that to the vendor. Now we're only able to give administrative fines. So when we cite them, there are monetary fines, and then they can give us whatever information they want to let us know who they are, to identify themselves, and then that's where the citation goes. The citation amounts are set. $250 for the first violation, $500 for the second within the same year, and then the third will be $1,000. So those are a pretty big challenge because even though we may see vendors in the same locations, it may not be the same person. When we go to address it with them, they may give us a different name. So those things are basically prohibiting a lot of the enforcement that we're doing out there.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you found that these businesses, some of them, they see the fine as just a cost of doing business? And they keep running the business at just the cost of doing business, the fine? So it's not a deterrent?
Isn't another question, are they actually paying the fines?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, I don't see them thinking that it's just the cost of doing business because they don't pay the fine. I don't know of any that have actually paid our fines. These fines are us going out, giving it to them, but we don't have a way to make sure that they come back and pay it because we don't know who they are. We write down what they tell us because we don't have to get the identification as we used to when we would give the misdemeanor citations. So for these, they provide us what they're able to provide, but there's no penalties if they give us incorrect information.
Okay.
So the vendor that's at Mayflower and Huntington, they've been there for a long time. Are you saying that those people are licensed?
Mayflower and
They're a sidewalk vendor. They've got pop-ups there, but they've been there for well over a year.
Is it food?
Yep.
I don't believe they are licensed.
Yeah, because they're on the sidewalk.
Yeah, they're on the side, right there by the paint.
Oh, with Sherman, okay.
Yeah.
They've moved over to where Leroy's is or the pet hospital. They've moved over in that area now.
Okay.
No, if they're the same people, they're not.
But they don't have a license.
No.
And I know the County of Los Angeles almost encourages street vendors. I mean, their idea is not to really cite them. They go out of their way to be very accommodating, I
They
should say.
have a lot of economic incentives for street vendors because they have a lot of different programs to try to help them. But they do require that if you're going through their process, that you go through their process. So even though you can go through them to get a permit, they still do require you to have the health department approvals before they license you. So they are actually out with us when we're addressing these street vendors and they're throwing away their food.
But we can't do it. That has to be the health department?
That confiscates their food and
Yes.
disposes of it, yes,
Okay.
the way the ordinance is currently.
Does the county health department come out on weekends or evenings?
Yes, so they came out with this one Saturday when we came out, but it all depends on what they have available. So they are available different days, but they work throughout the county. So it depends on their availability.
Very limited.
And are we able to do any type, now I'm getting ahead of us here, because we ask all these questions. Are we able to do any type of enforcement? We
Yes.
give them a citation, but I mean actually putting any teeth or going out and making them shut them down or anything like that?
At the current time, the only enforcement that we're able to do is with the county for them to confiscate their
Right.
items, the way the
But
current
we
code is.
ourselves don't have any power to do any of that.
Not with our ordinance. We just have the administrative fine ordinance.
Got it. Thank you.
Clarify that point too. It's not only just, it's really a problem of the state law. Like the ordinance complies with state law. State law doesn't give us any tools beyond the administrative fines. There's not and if they don't pay then kind of provision in state law. So we can't have anything like that in our ordinance. So we're really, the code enforcement folks are really hamstrung by SB 946 being sort of limited as to what enforcement mechanisms are available.
And limited staffing or whatever by the county, the health department, for them to come out and actually do any enforcement.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, we'll be quiet.
Okay. I'm not sure where I left off at, but I'm glad that you guys interjected. I feel like that helps a lot. So then for our enforcement process, so currently we do the vendor suits with LA County. We also have Monrovia PD, which is a requirement of the health department. When they come out with this, they do want public safety to assist because a lot of times we're having ridicule from the community, just in general. There are people that are driving behind us to see where we're going next. There's been other cities, this picture right here actually is from someone that posted on social media. I didn't zoom in too big on it, but that's me and Ken out there. And they basically put this up, and you have people that are saying, yes, they like it. What are they doing? No, they shouldn't be out here. So it's really mixed opinions out there when we're in the field. But we do still go through the process. We issue them the administrative citations. We also provide vendor handouts, both in English and in Spanish for the vendors, to know how to appropriately come in and get their permits to do what they're doing, because they are able to properly do it and go through the health department, but they choose to do it this way. Other than that, staff, we do stay until they're packed up. If the county doesn't necessarily throw away all of their food, or even if they do throw away all their food, there's things that they have in addition to the food that we wait for them to pack up and leave. So depending on how they got to the location, that also is part of it, because sometimes the vendors are dropped off. And then the vehicle that is transporting them is not back yet. So sometimes we have to wait a little bit longer depending on the vendor and their backup. So one of the challenges for code enforcement, or a couple challenges, the health and safety concerns. When we think about the health and safety, we think about the improper storage of the food, the raw meat that often is left out, and then it's not chilled or kept to the proper temperature. Also, the blocking of ADA accessible pathways. If there's anyone that's in a wheelchair, or even if there's anyone that's trying to walk past, a lot of times it makes it a lot harder. Besides that, there's also no area for washing of hands or the utensils that are being used either. We also have to worry about the grease that may be affecting our sidewalk areas based on where the catch basin is going or where their grease is being caught at. It may also have an impact on our sidewalk, which could provide a liability for us. And then in addition, they have these fuel tanks and open flames to prepare the food that's out there. Also, because of them not having a proper place to vend, a lot of times they're vending near areas that are exposed and open, where there may be infestation of rats and also other bugs. So that's another thing to think about. So our public safety concerns, I sort of went over this a little bit. We have been subject to intimidation and also verbal attacks by the public during our enforcement. And that's why PD, we actually really appreciate them being there, even though the health department requires them there, they're there even if we didn't need them to be there. So we appreciate that partnership that we have with the police department. Staff has also been video recorded and then had social media posts put up about different things of our enforcement. So some of our response efforts, we want to see from you guys are city council. Do you want us to consider any other enforcement options? Some of the things that were brought up earlier were about the ordinances. So there is a way to change the ordinance to give the city impoundment authority. That's something that we don't currently have. There's also a way to contract with code enforcement staff to help on some of the after hours or weekend activities with vending. Or we can also maintain our status quo, which is what we're doing now, and just having maybe increased targeted enforcement on different timeframes to address it at different times. Also, some of the considerations that we have to keep in mind is our staff scheduling, the workload balance, officer safety. A lot of times when we have officers out, in addition to the PD, the code enforcement officers, when they're out there, it's usually one, maybe two that are able to go. And then the budget to just think about all those things to put into play. So that concludes my presentation, and I will leave it open for any questions. that you
Further
guys may have.
questions, comments?
Yeah, my comment is with the street vending, we want people to be able to have business, but not unlawfully, because it creates such a danger to those that will partake in the food, to the point of that you made with all of the dangers that comes with that. So while we encourage businesses in our city and we're a welcoming city, there also has to be limits in how we function in order to ensure the safety of our community members. So yeah.
But what's the biggest challenge for Monrovia City staff dealing with the vendors, the sidewalk vendors?
The biggest challenge is getting to the locations that they're at and them actually leaving once we get there. So once we go out, we can write them a citation, we can do this whole enforcement, and then they'll set back up. So I think the biggest challenge is to not be able to stay there throughout the night, because we can go out as late as 8, 9 o'clock, and then depending on their activities will depend on when they actually shut down. And that's why we actually did the weekend stuff, because we weren't sure like when do they leave, because we know when they're here during the week, and they're usually here until like 8 or 9 o'clock. But to get a real idea of when they function, that's the biggest challenge, because I think they have a following, I guess is the one thing. Because even when we went out, they're not taking cash necessarily. They have the QR codes, and you could pay them through Zelle. They're a little more sophisticated than vendors in the past. So I think that's the biggest thing, is to catch them when they're in action and to make sure that they actually comply with what we're asking them to do.
Edward?
And I don't, if I may, Mayor, just kind of add additional thought to that, which is great. And with the enforcement piece, it's a lot of enforcement with little gain. And I think that's probably frustrating for staff and maybe frustrating for the community when they see it. Oftentimes it's, why isn't our team doing anything to take care of it? And it's, well, we have limitations due to state law.
So the impoundment, that would happen when they don't leave, once you've cited them?
Depending on how we write the ordinance, it could be part of it, yes.
Okay.
Edward?
Well, I think that the sentiment's already shared by the council. Obviously, we want to encourage businesses in our community, and at the same time, of course, we want to protect public health. That's why public health laws exist. That's why we make sure that we have those nice little ABCD ratings in restaurants to make sure that they're up to code and no one's going to get sick there. And not to say that any of these vendors are doing that, but by not getting a health permit, not having the inspections, not going through that process, it leaves one to worry. I think. I mean, they might have great food, so we don't dismiss that at all. But I do think that we should, having a standard and having something that we're enforcing sets the bar, and not having two standards, which it seems like we are almost condoning, and that's not on you all, right? We get that. But I think that is exactly the message it sends. It sends to people that you don't have to comply.
Yeah.
Rules don't matter necessarily, and I don't think that sets a good tone for anybody. I don't think it sets a good tone for businesses that are doing the right thing on a regular basis and what we expect from them to do. And and reciprocating in that manner. So I just want to also add one other thought is that I think you mentioned that the county does this, but I think if we could look into options as well to just encourage folks to find pathways to getting on the right track of how to get your health permit. Maybe it's even a reduced, maybe it's like, hey, if you can pay the fine, or you can go in and get your business license with us, and we'll waive the fine. I don't know if anyone would take you up on that until we have some other teeth, but I think it would be great if we could find some ways to encourage people that are trying to start a business to find a way to get to the next step, and that would be really useful, I think.
I have a question. Do
Hold on,
these-
Sergio,
Wait,
hold
very
on,
good.
hold on.
Go ahead, Larry.
Slow down, Sergio. So, is there a handout that you give the people, like a roadmap to, for them to be able to work their way into getting a permit?
Yes, we do have a handout that we provide to them, which has the information that they would go through to get the permits, to get the business license.
So, we all know that the vendors know when you guys are not on duty, right? So even though you go out there and you ticket them and you leave, they leave, and their supplier is coming right back and, you know, giving them everything that they need in order to start selling again. So
It's a
you
vicious,
just caught
vicious
between a
cycle.
rock and
Yeah,
a
vicious
hard
cycle.
stone, yeah.
I'm curious, how much is the permit?
$177 is how much the business license costs.
And what's the health permit?
The health permit, I'm actually not totally sure how much their permit costs, but for the city, it's $177, and then depending on how many staff they have, that will be the only way to increase their cost.
Do you-
One more, Sergio, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The fire department, I'm curious, do they have any more authority or power, especially if it's a danger in terms of open flame or something like that? Do they have more authority to shut somebody down? Are they restricted the same way as our code enforcement?
To shut someone down, the fire department may have some type of authority, but I think what we're going after more is,
The food, the
Yeah, yeah.
health department. Sergio, you had another question?
Is language, is that a barrier?
not that I can tell. We do have the information in English and in Spanish, and
Okay.
we are able to speak to them in English for the most part, even if we don't have, well, actually, we have a bilingual inspector as well.
All right.
so.
I think the purpose should be not to put people out of business, but rather that public health is protected and that we provide a pathway for compliance. And it looks like we're already doing that because we're giving them a handout that shows them exactly how to get the permits that they need.
Do we have go ahead.
I'm curious, what has been some of the feedback, if any, as to why they're not getting their permits or why not going through the path? Are they citing money? Are they citing, what's the feedback you're getting so far?
So the biggest feedback that we've received is the insurance requirements. I think that that's part of the issue that is keeping them from doing it. But I will say, a lot of the food truck vendors that we currently have were street vendors before. So they actually went through the process and have done it a different way. And then they've found a way to make it still to where they're able to vend their food in a legal way.
So do we have a consensus? No one's actually come out and said it, but you said that we could get an impound authority. Do I hear that?
An impound-
Consensus?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
We'd be able to take their stuff.
But you gotta be able to store it, don't you?
Yeah, if we did impound, then we would have to store the items. We'd also have to tag it and then be able to give it back to them. They would possibly have to pay a fee. I would work with our legal counsel to get together on how we can properly do this. But there's.
Is anybody else doing that around?
Yeah,
any of the other
definitely.
cities?
So the city of Covina has done it. City of Orange is doing it. I believe Baldwin Park, if I'm not mistaken, is also doing it. There's a lot of cities that actually have been
How about
doing it.
El Monte?
El Monte, I believe that they're doing it as well. It may be Almonte and not Baldwin Park.
So I think we need a little bit of feedback on this. So if we went with, say, the impounding, you just mentioned that we would have to find a place. Have you all thought about that? Do we know the place that you would put the trucks, or?
No.
Okay.
So I think.
We might need
if
more
the-
information.
Yeah, so if the city council's direction is to look for some solutions as an alternative to what we currently have in place, I think staff would want to look at, is just implementing a new ordinance the right approach? Do we need to kind of couple that with additional staff, contract staff, to facilitate the pickup of the equipment, the storage of the equipment? Staff would need to come back with maybe some more information for the council to consider.
I think that would be smart, to come back with different solutions and give us some choices, maybe, so that we can.
Options.
Some options, so if you could research that out.
And what the other cities, what they have found works best, because I think you're saying in terms of a non-licensing issue, it's really the street vendors. We have the trucks that are coming, those are licensed, correct? So, does that sound,
It does sound, you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
I think it sounds like a reasonable approach, and at least to find more information about it. I would throw out one other idea, is to even look at some areas we might be able to identify as, since insurance is an issue, like, could we say we can host some, I mean, we put on farmers markets are similar, they have their own health permit, but the insurance processes are different. If we have location or something, we want to host, say, you can run your vending here, we would help to offset some of those costs potentially, and or even a truck that's available for people to cycle through, that we help endorse somehow, that's just to lower those barriers, but still get people on that trajectory. And then we have two things, and we say, well, we're going to impound you, you can have this other path, you keep going the other route, you know where it's going to go, so.
But I think we all need to be in agreement with
oh,
something
yeah,
like that.
oh, yeah.
But also, can you bring back some information on the, all of the logistics that's involved, the storage, the cost of storage, the container, pretty much everything? Like if it's a scenario, just like you were gonna go out and compensate, take their equipment from them, and what all that would entail, but at least we'll know the price of that whole process,
Right, and the staffing costs,
Right.
obviously.
especially that contract.
Right,
part.
you're talking about, that's something that you
Additional.
that would be outside of their normal employee contract.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you very much. I know it's very challenging.
I don't think.
So with that, we are going to close our study session, and we are going to recess to close, there's a closed session, correct? Yes. I'm looking at the wrong heading here. Mr. Steele, you want to announce our closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. The council will now go into closed session regarding the one item on the posted agenda, conference with real property negotiator, Government Code Section